folks. Today we're going to talk about Chapter 4, which is all about listening. Listening is such a valuable part of the communication process and is often something that is overlooked. So let's explore and learn more about listening. All right, our learning targets or objectives for this chapter are, we're going to explain the difference between hearing and listening. We're going to talk about why listening is valuable, how to be an active and effective listener, how to engage people and to be better listeners, and how to give feedback as a listener. So again, make sure you're reading your chapter and looking for all the details about this text, but let's go through some highlights. I love this quote that says, "We have 2 ears and 1 tongue, so that we would listen twice as much as we speak." And I think that's something so important to think about, is that idea that if we spend all our time talking or saying words, we're often not listening to our audience or our surroundings, and the people that we're engaging with. So listening can be such a powerful tool, as it can build relationships, enhance your academic experience, and enhance your professional opportunities as well. So I love this really short YouTube clip, and it was a meme for a really long time. But this little boy is adorable, and you can tell that he has a lot to say about listening. Well, as you scroll through, he's talking to a woman named Linda, who's his caretaker, and he says, "You're not listening." And I love that image of a 3-year-old and how frustrated they get with their communication when they're not able to fully express themselves. And the power of listening is something that is taught to us so young, to make sure we're following rules, we're staying safe. But as we get older, we get busy and we overlook, again, that communicative process of listening. Listening requires great effort, and your role in the listening process really matters. So there's this idea of hearing versus listening. Hearing is the physiological response to sound waves. That's the physical ability that someone has to hear. Whereas listening requires paying close attention. Listening requires looking at nonverbal communication as well as verbal communication. And I love that idea of the tin can. When we're little, we sometimes make those little walkie-talkie, old-fashioned, out of cups or cans, and you can hear that sound wave that's being passed on the string. But it's often very difficult to actually listen to critical information in that particular setting. So I love how that illustrates the difference between hearing and listening. Now, there are 4 types of listening that your textbook talks about. The first one is appreciative listening. That's listening to the car stereo or a podcast, or listening or having Netflix playing in the background while you're working around the house. That's appreciative listening. Relational listening is showing empathy for a given situation, especially with our family and friends. It's the debrief at the end of the day with your loved ones as you are listening to connect. Empathetic listening, that's the idea of being a trained person listening for key ideas to connect. So this is therapists, counselors, conflict mediators are trained to listen in this manner. Then there's informative listening, which is what we're doing right now and what we engage in when we are in a professional setting. So informative listening is gathering information from school, from a church or religious organization, or any other organization that you are a part of. Now, there are 3 main values or important aspects of listening. There are academic, professional, and personal benefits to listening. The academic benefits is when you're able to absorb ideas, when you're able to hear and process that information, you can remember more information, you're going to be more successful on a test or an assessment, and you're going to be more successful when it comes to creating and producing ideas from that academic course. Professional benefits. There is the idea that listening can impact your wages, whether it's going down or going up. Better listeners have stronger relationships with customers. They're able to obtain a deal. They're able to advance on that salary schedule. When you're not a good listener, you make silly mistakes, you leave things out, you're not going to have the customer satisfaction that you're looking for. So listening can actually improve your bottom line or increase your profits. And the personal benefit is listening has heart. When you listen to people to build relationships, you remember key details about them, you understand what's going on in their lives, and you can make those connections. I love this quote too. It says, learning is a result of listening, which in turn leads to better listening and attentiveness to the other person. In other words, learn from the child. We must have empathy, and empathy grows as we learn. So that quote was taken from your text, but that idea that listening is a great tool for us to learn and grow academically, personally, and the more we listen, the more we empathize and relate to others, and the stronger our relationships are and the opportunities that we have in our lives. So, speaking of active listening, there are 3 parts to active listening. One is attention. So the average person speaks 125 words or 2 words a second. So 125 words in a minute. But we can process language so much faster. So we can process 500 words at a time. That's listening to the podcast at 2 times speed. That's having a Netflix play or song play while we're working. And so because we can process our words so much faster than we can actually say them, sometimes we get this spare brain time where it becomes hard to focus on the speaker because our brains are moving so much faster. And so we want to focus our attention. We want to give the best attention possible. Another active listening strategy is attitude. If you approach a situation, let's say, for example, you have a conflict with a friend. If you approach that situation where you're not with a negative attitude and you're not listening, you might not hear or process the information that's being said to you. So your attitude, you want to focus on listening opportunities. You want to be aware of your deaf spots, or as the book refers to, as the blinders that we have that prevent us from listening. And finally, you want to adjust and adapt as you go. Think about your listening habits. Think about ways that you can make yourself a better listener. For example, if you know that your phone is a big distraction, make sure you put it out of reach while you are communicating with another person. It's important to adapt. Now, I love this picture of this dad and his son. And you can see that the father's giving all of his attention to his son. He's trying to make that communicative connection. The attitude there in the son, however, is pretty powerful, and you can probably infer that there isn't a lot of listening happening there. But that continued adjustment and adaptation in their body language and how they interact will lead to a positive outcome of the situation. Now, there are barriers to listening, and there are several. We have internal and external interference when we are part of the communication model, which was discussed in Chapter 1. Internal is the thoughts in our heads, which could be we're tired or we're hungry or we're worried about something, so that becomes a barrier. That external interference is often loud noise. I love that image of the construction breaking things down can prevent us from hearing those ideas. But often when we're in a hurry, we anticipate what someone's going to say. And when we anticipate what someone's going to say, we forget to listen to all the details. In addition, judging. Sometimes we have a clear judgment or belief or a value system that prevents us from hearing another perspective or side. And reacting emotionally. Sometimes we hear startling news and we get worked up about it. And when that happens, then we can shut down. So it's really important that we consider all of those different barriers to listening. Now, I love these active listening skills and strategies, and they're ways to enhance our listening. One is to keep an open mind. Paying attention and to withhold all those judgments can be really powerful. If you know you've got a distraction, identify it and get it out of the way. Come prepared to a speaking situation, like come to class with your pen and your notebook, and also take notes. Writing things down can make it easy to remember what it is we have to say, and you can ask clarifying questions after you've looked at your notes. Providing feedback, summarizing what someone else has said, verbally paraphrasing so that you understand the message, and then non-verbally listening, giving the head nod, giving good eye contact. Those are all important parts of enhancing your listening. And so we want to encourage effective listening. When you are the speaker and you're creating a speech, you want to write for the ear. Sometimes how we write for the ear is different from how we'd write on paper. So be cognizant of that delivery and what your end goal is. Find ways to make the listener care. You want to draw your audience in, relate your message to them. You also want to cue your listeners, like talking about that. Last week we talked about the intros and conclusions. So preview. I'm going to tell you the X, Y, and Z. Giving that clear preview and then reviewing in your conclusion are very powerful. Also know your audience. If you're speaking to a class, you're going to talk about something different than maybe if you're speaking to a room of kindergartners or if you're speaking to your family and friends. So follow that sound, get people going with you. I love the Moira Rose gift here of making sure that people are staying with you while you're sending your message. All right, some final things to think about. I love these quotes and just expressing the importance of listening. Listening is one of the loudest forms of kindness. It is a way that you can engage and connect with people. As Bernard M. Burke says, most of the successful people I've known are the ones who do more listening than talking. Again, be an active member of the communicative process. Make sure you are giving and you're listening, whether you are the main speaker or you are a participant in a conversation. And finally, most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. When we're busy and we're excited to share our stories, remember to take time to pause and truly listen to others.